Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm going to break this video down into two, just because of the length. Described it at the end. I explained it at the end of the last video. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. Oh yeah, this is Munda, 45 BC, Caesar's last campaign. I started to see, was Caesar a tyrant, and then the assassination of Caesar. So, this is number 18, but there's 27 videos. So I'm kind of curious what the end ones are. They might greatest hits. I don't know. Greatest hits. What am I talking about?
Following the Battle of Thapsus, Caesar had, at least politically, won the civil war. Militarily, though, some ardent optimates still challenged him in Hispania. For Caesar's victory to finally be complete, he needed to defeat these last remnants of the opposition. There would be just one more campaign before the civil war was over, Caesar's Spanish War. Welcome to our video on the Battle of Munda. Shout out to Rise of Kingdoms for sponsoring this video and supporting our channel. Rise of Kingdoms is a mobile real-time strategy game. The political heart of the Optimate faction, Cato, was dead. Cicero, his natural heir as political head of the faction, had resigned himself to being a part of the new order, rather than fighting against it, hoping that he would be able to persuade Caesar to restore the Republic. Many other Optimate senators had similarly resigned themselves to working with Caesar, in part because many of them had been captured and then spared by him. The extent to which Caesar had won politically can be seen in the powers bestowed on him in the immediate aftermath of Thapsus. He was made dictator for the third time for a wholly unprecedented 10 years, made prefect of morals, and the Forum of Caesar was completed and dedicated to him in recognition of his achievements. Caesar was, for all practical purposes, the master of Rome. However, some of the Optimates still resisted. Gnaeus and Sextus Pompey had fled from Africa and arrived in Baetica. With them went survivors of Thapsus, including two of Caesar's most active and determined opponents, Titus Labienus and Attius Varus. Baetica had been chosen deliberately, as Pompey Magnus had been governor of the province in the 50s BC, and people in the area still respected him, including legionaries who fought against Caesar during the Spanish campaign of 49 BC. His sons found plenty of support, and managed to amass 1 legion from survivors of Thapsus. Shortly after their arrival, 2 legions under Trebonius's command had sided with the brothers, and they had managed to levy 1 more from sympathetic Roman citizens in the area, many of whom had previously served under Pompey's command. Additionally, the brothers made alliances with some Lusitanian tribes, and had drawn a number of deserters and others to their banners. Caesar claimed that they had 70,000, but he was probably counting garrisons and other supporters in that number. These events had happened in the summer of 46 BC. Caesar was, at the time, occupied in Rome with assigning magistrates, retiring many of his longest-serving veterans, holding games and triumphs, and beginning the reordering of the calendar. As a result, he had assigned Quintus Pedius and Quintus Fabius Maximus, along with 4 legions already in the Hispanic provinces, to handle the situation. As the months went on, however, Caesar heard of the growing success of the Optimates, and realized that he would, once again, have to handle the matter personally. He gathered 4 more legions, his favorite 10th, the veteran 5th and 6th, and the relatively new 3rd, and marched to Baetica, arriving in the area by the end of the year. By that point, Sextus Pompey had already taken the main city in the area, Corduba, and was holding it with a strong garrison, while Gnaeus was in command of the army alongside Labienus. Together, they had laid siege to Ulia, one of the few cities in the area that had not pledged allegiance to them. Caesar got to work immediately. Lucius Vibius Paciacus, one of Caesar's officers who was known to the Ulians and knew the area well, was sent with 6 cohorts and cavalry to the city, while Caesar began to march on Corduba, hoping to draw Gnaeus from Ulia, which was his favoured tactic. Perdiccas approached Ulia during the night, and a huge storm swept in. Seizing his opportunity, Perdiccas calmly marched his men through Gnaeus' lines. The sentries, unable to clearly distinguish any of the legionary symbols of Caesar's men in the dark and through the torrential downpour, simply let them past, allowing Caesar's lieutenant to slip into the town and prepare his men to defend it. Meanwhile, as Caesar was approaching Corduba, he sent a detachment of cavalry and mounted legionnaires as a scouting party ahead of his main force. They soon ran into a cavalry unit sent out by Sextus. The two forces clashed, Caesar's legionaries quickly dismounting to fight on foot. Not prepared for fighting heavy infantry, the Pompeians took heavy casualties before breaking and fleeing back to Corduba with the news that Caesar was near. Urgently, Sextus sent messages to his brother requesting reinforcements. Gnaeus quickly agreed, abandoning the siege of Ulia and marching to Sextus's aid. Caesar approached Corduba from the south. It seems that Sextus had either blocked or destroyed the bridge from Corduba that crossed the Baetis, forcing Caesar to create a makeshift one by lowering baskets piled with stones and then laying planks across them. Afterwards, he made camp outside Corduba. Gnaeus soon arrived, encamping opposite, and Caesar immediately began erecting a line of palisades from his camp to the bridge, cutting Gnaeus off from the city. Similarly, Gnaeus began creating defences from his camp to the bridge, hoping to cut off Caesar's escape. Fierce skirmishes were fought on the bridge itself, each side trying to force the other to concede control of it. The narrowness of the bridge made the fighting particularly brutal, and many were either thrown into the river during the fighting, or were killed and their bodies left piled on the bridge. Caesar was hoping for a quick
Fighting back then was so ruthless. Just imagine being stabbed with a sword.
and decisive battle, and this was clearly not going to be that. Accordingly, one night he lit a large number of campfires to give the impression his camp was still garrisoned, and then slipped out of the fort. He carried out a risky river crossing during the night, slipping away from the brothers and making for the town of Ategua, which had the strongest Pompeian garrison in the area. The next morning, Gnaeus realized what had happened, and Labienus pursued with his cavalry, capturing a number of Caesar's supply wagons, but withdrawing before they could be caught and pinned. Caesar, reaching Ategua, began besieging the city, encamping nearby. The terrain around the city was extremely hilly. Many of these had watchtowers already built on them, and as he had done at Ruspina, Caesar quickly assigned pickets. When Gnaeus and Labienus approached, they did so under heavy fog, and using it, they were able to surround and slaughter a number of Caesar's pickets, with only some horsemen escaping to give Caesar news of their approach. Nevertheless, when the fog lifted, it became clear that Caesar's men had already claimed most of the strategically important high ground in the area. With little choice, Gnaeus was forced to make camp on high ground between Ategua and Acubi. Although he could still see Ategua, he was not close enough to attack Caesar. The Optimates soon noticed that one of the hills to the south of the town, known as the Camp of Postumius, was an ideal location. A river cutting between it and Caesar's camp would make it difficult for Caesar to reinforce. Furthermore, it was close enough to Caesar to apply pressure and overlooked his supply and communication lines. Caesar and Labienus used this same tactic a number of times in the Gallic Wars, most notably at Gergovia, and Labienus sent a detachment in the night to seize it. The Caesarians, however, were alert, and immediately raised the alarm upon the attack, resisting fiercely. Caesar sent the 5th, 6th and 10th legions to reinforce them. With their countless experiences of river crossings, The legions were able to quickly ford the river and come to their allies, forcing the Pompeian detachment to retreat to their camp. The following day, a reinforcing detachment of cavalry and allied kings arrived to join Caesar, king of West Mauritania Bogod among them. Gnaeus and Labienus now decided to abandon their position, marching further west to the banks of the river Salsa. Though they would be even less able to pressure Caesar from here, winter was beginning to set in, and this new position would make it easier to be supplied from Cordoba. Caesar, on the other hand, would be forced to winter around Etegua. A stalemate emerged as Gnaeus and Labienus fortified their camp along the Salsum, while Caesar simultaneously harassed supplies being sent to them from Cordoba and carried out several unsuccessful attacks on Etegua. This situation greatly benefited the Pompeians. With the locals on their side, it was in their best interest to stall Caesar as long as possible and hope to drain his supplies throughout the winter. Caesar, usually known for his clemency, was notably unmerciful during this period, as several prisoners were executed and captured couriers from Cordoba had their hands cut off. Gnaeus and Labienus kept Caesar under pressure, attacking his pickets, surrounding and killing many, forcing Caesar to send more men to dissuade any other attacks. They also continuously attacked Caesar's cavalry that ventured out to scout and forage. Once again, Caesar had his back against the wall. In early 45 BC, the pro-Caesarian faction in Etegua sent envoys to Caesar offering to surrender if he agreed to remove the Pompeian garrison and not garrison the city himself. Caesar refused, and the envoys returned to Etegua. The Pompeian garrison soon found out about this and rounded up the men responsible, murdering them. This would prove to be a disastrous decision for the Pompeians. Neither Gnaeus nor Labienus had ordered this massacre. They were outraged, as this could have cost them the support of the people. Looking to salvage what they could from the situation, they snuck a messenger into Etegua, telling the garrison to sally out that night and force a way through Caesar's lines to their camp. The plan went into effect that night, the garrison rushing out and trying to fight through Caesar's lines. Caesar's men, however, easily beat them back. Gnaeus and Labienus kept their men in battle formation across the river Salsum. In reality, it seems that neither particularly wanted to help the garrison, as following the massacre, Gnaeus and Labienus were not willing to risk their men's lives in order to save them.
We're going to end it here, and we'll be back for part 2. I didn't talk a whole lot because I'm just really kind of curious on this one. I didn't have anything to add, and I was just watching it. So I'm going to end this here. Hopefully I'll chime in a little bit more. A few people have asked why I haven't been drinking lately. I got over the flu, and I just haven't been in a drinking mood, so I do apologize. I'm not looking out for my liver. I'm just not in a mood. But I will. Don't you worry about that. This drunkard knows when he should be drinking. So, like and subscribe, and I'll be back for the second part of this. I'm chilly. Just thought I'd tell you.